Welcome, everybody. My name is Lisa Simmons. I'm the executive director of the Roxbury International Film Festival. We are really excited to have all of the filmmakers here for the series of films that you just saw on overcoming things and issues, and we're going to jump right into that in a minute. I just wanted to let you know that we have another day, one more day of RoxFilm. Another series of films that follow after this. So please join us in that. And we are in person tomorrow night for the closing for Alvin Ailey, a documentary on Alvin Ailey. So without further ado, we're going to talk about Against All Odds, which is this film series with these amazing films. And I'm going to have the filmmakers introduce their films, talk a little bit about them, and then we'll just get into a discussion and conversation about what Against All Odds means in each one of these films. So Tom, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name's Tom Mason. I'm half of Red Glass Pictures. We're a production company based outside of New York City. I work with a co-director named Sarah Klein, and we made a series with WETA, the PBS affiliate in Washington, D.C., called Out of the Dark, which is about mental health in young people. And the film that you just saw about Raven Saunders is one of those films.
Great. And Larry?
All right, everyone. How are you? I'm Larry Ulrich. I'm the executive producer, writer, director, and lead actor.
Lead actor.
Yeah, in the film, I'm Not Special. And, the film is about a young man with Down syndrome who had the opportunity, who had the will to want to compete in the Special Olympics. And the character I play is his drug-addicted father who kind of serves as a barrier for him getting there. So I won't give the end of the movie. You guys will have to watch it, and we'll talk afterwards. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Larry. And Victor?
Hi, everyone. I'm the director and writer of 14 Games. I am a football coach, and it was kind of a big ordeal about the young players overcoming. Like Larry, I'm not going to give up too much of the ending, but it's the team never won a championship at all. Been losing for the last 10 years, haven't made playoffs in 10 plus years. And then this is the year we're starting to get momentum with a new coach coming in. The program was broken. So it's about the coach coming in and doing stuff for the kids. And the kids overall, they're all overcomers. None of the kids have more than one car in the family, struggle to find their next meal. And those are the kind of kids we had. And it was the coach and one of me, myself, and the other coaches guiding them to get to where they want to be and how they're going to get there and teaching them life lessons. So everyone overcame as a school and as players. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, when we were sort of choosing films for RoxFilm, we have all the films like out on a table and we're just trying to figure out what matches with what. And as I was talking about before we got on, these films really resonated with us because so many of these of your stories are about overcoming odds. And, oftentimes you make films about what you know. And so I'd love for you all to talk a little bit about why this film for you. Why was this film so important, or this story so important for you to put on film so that you could share it with other people? Because that is, you're in a medium that you're doing that. You made this choice to make a film about these particular topics to teach a lesson, I'm thinking. So can you talk a little bit more about that? And I'm going to start with you, Larry.
Well, it's two reasons for me. I was inspired. I have an uncle who has Down syndrome. Second, I was watching a documentary on ESPN. Now I'm an ESPN fanatic. And it was about this young man named Adrian Peterson, and he was born with alcohol fetal syndrome. And let me tell you, I must have cried like a baby when I saw that documentary. And that inspired me. And if it had me in tears, I said, you know what? There's a story behind that. So I just put together experiences with my uncle, brought in the whole aspect of the Special Olympics, and there you go. I'm Not Special was birthed.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, first of all, that the child actor that you cast was beautiful. What a beautiful child. He was amazing in this film. And I don't know if it was his first film, but it was really a wonderful portrayal. And what about you, Victor?
Initially, I never planned to make a documentary. Early in the season, they just wanted to promote the school. Like they're saying, when I came in, I started coaching a little bit. They'd never won. And the coach pulls me in and says, you know what, we're winning a championship this year. And I'm like, bro, we were like 4-6 last year. There's no way we're winning a championship. But he saw something, and he understands the kids more than I do. And like I said, they've had nothing, but they fight. The kids here fight a little harder than the kids up where the nice houses are. So, I was sort of inspired throughout the season of what some kids overcame. Like some kids were foster care to foster care, and they ended up getting Division I scholarships. And I'm like, every single kid, top to bottom, has fought. And I'm like, I have all the footage. I know how to do it. And I want to be a filmmaker. Why not just make a documentary and get one under my belt? And it kind of just came together. And now the way I saw it initially, it put me over the edge. It's like, these boys have something now when they're 50 to show their kids. I wanted the school's first championship, and they're like, Vic made that. Hopefully we'll see what happens down there. I've made a second one. I'm working on my third. But now these boys from this area who have had very little their whole life will now have a piece to show their family what they have when they're older, and to help them believe, and to help other kids locally with the same situations believe in themselves. And that's what we do as coaches, and that's what I like to do as a filmmaker.
Yeah, and that's for all of you. I mean, it's funny because there's you probably were like, we're all together because we're like sports. We have sports stuff. It's like, but that is another theme. I mean, and that's the wonderful thing about your films is that they have multiple themes that go through them. And who doesn't love a sports film? I mean, I love sport. I mean, like, you know, and that overcoming adversity and yeah, I mean, it makes us all feel really good, and you wait for that moment. So yeah. So I mean, and it's the same with you, Tom. It's sort of like you wait for that moment that Raven's that she's gonna be okay.
Yeah, boy, I mean, sports just have that natural drama and tension built right in, which makes them so appealing to make films about. So with the piece about Raven, you know, like I said, she's one of a series that we did with WETA about youth mental health. And when we found her story, it really resonated with us, partially because of that sports angle. You know, this idea that top level athletes, I think most of us can't even conceive of what they have to do to get to that level. We know, okay, it's a lot of hard work. I believed in myself. I trained, and but there's a mental health aspect to it too that up until recently nobody talked about. And you know, these days you're seeing more athletes coming out and saying, hey, I really struggled with anxiety. I struggled with depression. That's why I missed those games that one time. You know, the stigma is fading away. Thank God. But that's what made it feel like such an important topic, that here was this woman, the top of her field, and to be number 5 at the world in anything is next to impossible. Next to impossible. And she was at the last Olympics. And for her to be so open and pull back the curtain on, you know, for me to generate that sort of intensity, came from some stuff in my past that I still really struggle with. I was able to use that, and that then in turn took a toll on me, was such an interesting and valuable message.
So you said something really interesting, and I mean, I know you all have these personal connections with this, but that next to impossible, right? I mean, all of your films sort of bring that theme forward also, next to impossible. Like 14 games, no one believed in them. It was like next to impossible that they would win a championship, and I'm not going to be a spoiler alert. But the same with I'm Not Special. It's like next to impossible that this kid could pull himself out, and someone would pull him out of the situation that he was in with his parents to become this star. And for Raven, it was like she was at a point where it was next to impossible that she would even be able to move forward and be an Olympian. So, you know, Larry, I want to go to you because I want to have this conversation about not only is it the young boy in this film who comes out of adversity, but the father ends up taking a huge turn. So can you talk a little bit about that too? Because I think family is really important in all of these aspects too. We don't necessarily see it a lot in 14 Games and Raven, but you know it's there. and it's not, and it doesn't necessarily need to be traditional family. And that's what I loved too, is that your films are not about traditional family who's helping them against all odds. In 14 games, it's the players and it's the coaches. And Raven, it's her therapists and her belief in herself and her gym. And it's I'm Not So Special, it's the boxing gym that comes in. So can we talk about that, about sort of like the ability for people to come in and help these people through these odds that they're facing, and how you portrayed that in your movies?
With the dad, I would take the drug, the addiction aspect. I think as an addict, now I haven't been one, but of course, you do your research, but there's a lot of selfishness in there, and you don't see anyone else but yourself and your habit. And I think in the film, once he saw his son make a step, any type of level of success is very attractive. And then people start believing in you. See, at first, when you talk about a goal, it's more of a fantasy.
Right.
But when he saw his son actually take steps forward, not only did he believe in his son, then he started believing in himself. So I think the dad started seeing, and when he started seeing, then he started believing.
Yeah. And I think that I felt like in that story too, the dad was sort of like looking at the other father figure that was bringing his son forward and having some sort of, and it maybe wasn't in a sense of jealousy, but it was like, I've clearly done wrong, right? And now maybe like he actually can be somebody, because he never thought he could be. He thought he has Down syndrome, he's never going to go anywhere. I'm a failure, he's a failure, we're all going to be a failure together. And realizing that someone else paid attention and took notice of this kid who ends up being this like special Olympian. So Victor, can you talk a little bit about that too, about this whole for your kids, for those kids at 14 games and their sort of non-traditional families? We didn't delve into in your film much about their families, but I just got this sense of their family. Oftentimes in sports, this happens, was their football team.
Yeah, and I think that's more apparent at our school than it is most, because a lot of the kids, they have nothing, like foster families, one mom, one dad, never around. They see me and the head coach and the coaches more than they see their own family, and that's why with us it's never football first, and it's usually just family first. So like we take care of them on every other aspect, coaching wise. But in terms of this film, I wanted to show that the coaches, their dad, they coach the other fathers. They got hundreds of text messages, coaching 20 plus years, from players he's touched beyond the field. Like, he just cares about them in a different way, and he wants them to succeed and overcome. And what we do, like a lot of our talks about football, is about a parent and translation to life, how to overcome and work. Just this other day, after the game, we're like, we don't even care about football. We did okay, but we want to show you guys how to work. We're putting in 3-4 hours football in order to work, to show you guys how to work in life and do and get a job and those kind of things. And I wanted to really highlight that throughout, because they didn't talk too much about it in this documentary, but the other ones, they talk about all the work that was put in, hours, price paid to get here. And that was apparent. The price paid to get to let's just say they go to a championship, hypothetically, which, we won't spoil that. That's the price you got to pay to get the job you want. That's the price you got to pay to get the house, car you want one day. And these kids have never seen that. And because obviously they're home, they're broken. But we wanted to show them that through football, that the work will pay off once something will happen. And it's not all it is to life, what you've seen. There's much more to it. So it's just family first, football, and then just overcoming in every way possible. And football is obviously our vessel.
Yeah, and it was just beautifully done. A lot of football footage, and that's great, because you married it with other interviews with kids who are talking about how important this is to them. And I felt the same way with your film, Tom, with Raven, that I got this sense that she talks about her family, and she talks about growing up, and she talks about this with her sister and her mom, and never really knowing where she fit in, and then finding shot put that was sort of like catapulted her to be like, oh my gosh, like this is something that I can actually do, and becoming a weightlifter and all of that other stuff, because her mother was abused, and against those odds, she becomes who she is, and that, and her family, in a sense, became that gym for her. Did it?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, she became and is still incredibly close with her high school coach.
Yeah.
She refers to him as her father because that's the role that he has played in her life. You know, when we asked her for photographs, she was like, "Oh, ask my high school coach." Like that's the relationship that they have. That it's like, you know, I would be like, "Oh, well, let me call my mom." She
Right.
was like, let me put you in touch with my high school, you know. But no, you're right. She had to sort of piece together non-traditional families. A lot of it was through sports, and you know, then and that's tricky because you know, your environment changes in sports, whether it's getting traded to another team or, you know, in her case, she goes to the Olympics. She's she gets all this attention. She's in the news. People know who she is. And then she comes home and she has trouble even calling her mom and saying, like, I'm still me. I still have the same issues.
Right.
And I'm like kind of famous now, but I don't even have money for dinner. And I'm struggling. And that was the hard thing for her, was to admit that she was struggling, because the Hulk persona was this, I'm strong, nobody can hurt me. And so with this really being, it's a sports story, but really it's a story about a mental health journey
Oh yeah.
that happens to be about an athlete. And so the real story here is that she built up this Hulk-like persona, and everything turns when she allows herself to ask for help. And that's the text with the therapist that you mentioned.
Right.
That it was the first time that she allowed herself to be vulnerable and to say, open up to someone enough to say, I really need help right now. And that's when her life turned in that aspect. And she's, you know, she's
Is she
now
still competing? Is she competing now?
News flash. Last night, Raven qualified for the Tokyo Olympics.
What?
Not only is she still
Yay!
competing, but she, on one of her throws, set the Olympic trials, U.S. Olympic trials record. So she's better than she was 5 years ago.
Wow.
The next person who threw then broke that record. But regardless, she's doing very well, and she will be competing in the Tokyo Olympics next month, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's huge news. And she's doing great as an athlete too, and has also now put herself in a much better position mentally and with her mental health to compete in I think a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so interesting when you think about, I mean, about the importance of coaches, the importance of other people in your life that can help support your journey. And if they're not necessarily there, if you're not listening to them, then your life can go a totally different way. And I feel like that's so much a part of all of your films. And you know, it's interesting because in your film, Larry, there's two protagonists. There's you, who play the father, and then there's the little boy who you get the sense that he's that he doesn't you know, that he understands what's going on, and sort of like is just really like, I know this guy's really being really nice to me and he really wants to support me. And then you've got Larry, who is just a complete mess. And then finds a way and understands that he needs to make that turn in order to be a better father and a better supporter, and understand that someone can support his son more than him. You know, and it's just sort of like, it has been beautiful to watch all of those transitions. You know, so can you guys just talk? So Larry, did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can you just talk a little bit about, your story was really the young boy who has Down syndrome who overcomes, but your story was also about your character and the father who took this turn.
Yeah, and again, he took that turn not only because he saw it, but you were right. He actually not only saw his son take that step, but he did see another man step into his shoes. And I think he realized, because when you're on drugs, you think you're doing everything correctly. You really don't know. But when you see how someone else do it, but do it a little bit different than you, then it's a wake-up call. And I think, that's what happened with him when the coach stepped in. And, he got a little jealous, which was fine, but he realized that he has a lot more to do. And again, I don't want to tell the story, but it seemed like everything might work out. So.
Yeah, exactly. And Victor, did you find that? Did you have any conversations with the kids' parents? Was there any sort of issues with?
We had a couple parents that obviously the few involved, like I only knew maybe like 3 or 4 of the kids' parents out of the team of 50. But
Wow.
Talking about the shift, I'd say that the shift was a lot in the mentality of the kids. If you recall in game 3, we're playing John Glenn, right? The
Yep.
kids have always been used to losing. They hadn't believed in themselves yet. And at halftime, coach said, you got to learn how to win. We're 24 minutes of coming and learning how to win, because we were in a dogfight. That team was very good, down from the LA, then they're really tough. So in that moment, that game was where kids finally started to believe in themselves. And that's 5 years in the making prior to this doc coming to learn in that game. And coach instilled that in them, because in life they're used to, like, people that are born in the hood, like some of our kids and myself, we stay down. They were taught to learn and overcome. And that game is like, we're here, we're competing. And I said, learn how to win. It's them flipping the switch of knowing that they can be successful. They can be great husbands and fathers. And he reiterates that down the stretch. But that game, when the kids finally saw the fruits of their work and won a team that was very good and then started rolling after that, that was the big flip for a lot of these kids in life and of this documentary. And that's what really carried us down to the stretch of the and it goes deeper, more in real life. Obviously the doc showed it in a nice little light, but what we do for our kids, I think, is pretty special. And I just felt that the doc highlighted it pretty well. And that was the game of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I could feel that. I mean, there's just so many of those stories that we see that we can't see enough of, because that there's a story behind the story. And for all of your films, we know that there's a story behind the story, that there is a struggle, and you give us the sort of high level view of that struggle, but we understand, but not sharing with us those little pieces and bringing them in to understand what these characters are going through, or these people are going through, in order to overcome adversity. And that's why we need more of these films. We need more of them for kids to see. We need more of them for adults to see, to understand that, overcoming adversity takes time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of work. But what you're teaching kids, for all of you, for Larry and your film, and Victor, and then for Raven, it's huge that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. That, I mean, I think in your film, Victor, someone said, they believe it. The coach says, you paid the price to be here and to become winners. No one believed in them except for them. And I feel like for all of you all, they all paid the price to be winners, and they end up being winners. And that's what I took away from all of these films, which is why we've curated them all together. And I just applaud you for this work, because I don't know if this is what we see when we watch your films. And I don't know if you do, but it's really inspiring. The work that you've done, that you've created, and these films that you've created are really important, I think, especially for kids of color, for adults of color, to really look at this and see themselves in it, or see somebody else in it and say, wow, yes, I'm going to move forward. So I thank you. I don't, if there's anything else that you want to leave with or say or tell us what else you're doing so we can follow you is great. But I just want to let you know how much we appreciate your work and what you're doing and to continue forward, because what you're doing, it really makes a difference.
We
No, I was
appreciate
going to
it.
say,
Thank you for having us.
oh, yeah, no, I
No, I just
think,
think.
no, I'm looking, I
No, I
think,
just think. Thank you.
All right, Larry, and then Victor.
okay, there we go. No, I think you, my other two fellow filmmakers on here, seem like you guys had documentaries, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess I was the only scripted.
Yeah,
So,
the narrative.
okay, so when we talk about Beat All Odds, it just wasn't on the screen. It was actually off the screen too. So for you guys, I actually cast a young man. He was 10 at the time, and he really has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So when I wrote it, a lot of people were saying, wow, do you really think that he can handle this?
He was
And
beautiful.
I said, I believe so. And what I did was I did a Google search to try to find any type of agent that has a special division is what it's called. And there was only one agency in LA. And I called them and they recommended Julius, and I auditioned Julius and he was perfect. But I remember the first day the DP was so nervous because he really has Downs.
Oh yeah, you can tell that. You can see that he's not a communicative, right?
So you know how some children have slight Downs, but he really has Downs. So everyone was just wondering, can he handle it? But let me tell you, he was a rock star. So when we talk about Against All Odds, I mean, he really shocked the cast and the crew. And as you can see, he was magnificent.
He really was. And you know, to be dealing with the subject matter that he's dealing with and sort of understanding that and going with that and performing the way he did was pretty incredible. So kudos to you who directed it and wrote it and brought him in and believed in him. It's the story about believing, right? And believing in people and believing in people to tell that story. So Victor, what were you going to say?
I was just saying thank you for having us. That's all it was.
Oh, great. We're really excited. And we wish you the best of luck with your stories. We'll be talking about them because we talk about all of our films all the time. And we also bring in films at other certain times, but I just think that they're really great teaching tools. And Tom, for Raven, really just a great teaching tool. Did you want to leave us with any last things?
Yeah, I would just love to give a plug to wellbeings.org, which is the website that WETA has built for their youth mental health initiative. You can see the rest of the Out of the Dark films. We made 2 other ones that are both great too. So wellbeings.org is where the rest of this stuff lives. And thanks for having us.
Thank you. That's really important. I mean, we've been talking a lot about mental health, especially in the African American community, and trying to find resources for people, for kids, you know, Black and brown kids who don't necessarily traditionally find spaces and, you know, find a place to go with that. So that's great. So we'll make sure that we post that somewhere. So I just want to say thank you all for taking the time. I really appreciate you jumping on a Zoom and having this conversation. And we wish you the best. We wish you the best. So thank you all so much. And Victor, we hope that team continues to win.
I hope so too. We're getting ready. We had practice today, and I'm gonna lift with them kids after this. So we're gonna get going after it always.
Excellent. And we'll be looking for Raven in the Olympics, and we'll be looking for your next project, Larry. So thank you so much. All right, take care, everybody.